Part 4 Mediocrity. The Slow Lane Roadmap. Fastlane 10. The lie you've been sold, the slow lane. What if I told you, insane, was working 50 hours a week in some office for 50 years, at the end of which they tell you to piss off, ending up in some retirement village hoping to die before suffering the indignity of trying to make it to the toilet on time? Wouldn't you consider that to be insane? Steve Buscemi, Con Air, Paramount Pictures, 2003. Next exit, slow lane, mediocrity. Ahead. In the previous chapter, we highlighted that a sidewalker has no financial plan and is only concerned with the pleasures of today, often governed by instant gratification. While the sidewalk is a chronic lifestyle that mortgages the future for a pleasurable today, the slow lane is the antithesis, a sacrifice of today in the hopes of a brighter and freer tomorrow. As a slow lane traveler, you're deluged with a series of doctrines that plead discipline to the trade-off. Get a job and waste 5 days a week toiling at the office. Bag a lunch and stop drinking $10 coffee. Faithfully entrust 10% of your paycheck to the stock market and your 401k. Quit dreaming about that sports car in the window because you can't buy it. Delay gratification until you're 65 years old. Save, 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 because compound interest is powerful. $10,000 invested today will be worth 10 gazillion in 50 years. Surprisingly, the slow lane is the first convenient exit off the sidewalk and evolves with maturity and increased adult responsibilities. Most college graduates begin their post-schooling life on the sidewalk. I certainly did. Graduation pardoned a license to buy stuff that yielded instant pleasure, trips to Cancun, a flashy car with a booming stereo, nightly drinking binges, a massive CD collection. Life was all about now, regardless of future consequences. Sidewalkers, and people in general, instinctively regard a better future. I'll be making more money, I'll hit the lottery, after my father dies I'll inherit thousands. Future crutches often justify pleasurable nows and, behind the scenes, lifestyle servitude swells. However, with increased responsibilities, perhaps a growing family, mounting debt loads, and future expectations not matching reality, the sidewalker comes to terms with the uncertainty of the sidewalk and does the seemingly responsible lane change. He off-ramps and graduates to the slow lane roadmap, a strategy touted and praised by credible sources. While the sidewalk is typified by undisciplined behavior, the slow lane's financial plan introduces responsibility and accountability into the wealth formula. That can't be bad, right? Unfortunately, the slow lane is like bad directions given at a gas station, except these directions aren't given by strangers, but by people you trust, teachers, television and radio personalities, financial advisors, and yes, even our parents. These ostensible sources reinforce the strategy's fictitious strength when its efficacy is a sucker's bet. The slow lane is a lifetime wager that a sacrificial today will yield a wealthier tomorrow. The promise of wealth. The price. Your life. The slow lane is rarely challenged. It's a lie so deceiving that when the ruse is uncovered, decades of life have passed. Meanwhile, millions more are being newly indoctrinated to the deception. If you buy the lie, you sell off today in hopes of a glorious tomorrow. And when does this glorious tomorrow happen? When can you splurge, spend your millions, and enjoy life? When? The driving force behind wealth under get rich slow is time, time employed at the job and time invested in the markets. Your glorious tomorrow might arrive after 40 years, when you're living your last presidential administration and on your second hip replacement. Your glorious tomorrow might arrive when you're 73 years old and soaked in urine and strapped to a stinking bed because you've lost your mind to Alzheimer's. Seriously, when does this slow lane plan of retiring rich actually become real so you can enjoy your millions? As a teenager, Joe reads several personal finance books about getting rich. They tell him to save, get a career, clip coupons, and live below your means. After graduating with a law degree, Joe follows this advice. While it is difficult, Joe follows this plan for wealth diligently. He works 60 hours weekly at his law firm, often neglecting his family and children. His weekdays are consumed at the office, while his weekends are spent home recharging from the rigors of the workweek. After 12 years in law, Joe decides his profession is no longer enjoyable. Yet, he decides to endure, as he is just one promotion away from making partner and a guaranteed six-figure salary. As Joe's life progresses, he never loses sight of his goal, retire by age 55 because, after all, financial guru David says, the smart people finish rich. Joe saves, works overtime, invests in mutual funds, and participates in his firm's 401k. He continues to endure his job for the sake of the plan. No one said it'd be easy. That one day was coming, the day when he'd retire with millions. He justifies that 5 days of misery in a hated job was worth the sacrifice for the future. Then, one hot summer day while mowing the lawn, Joe has a heart attack and dies at age 51, 4 years before his destination. Slow lane weapons. Go to school, get good grades, graduate, pay yourself first, overtime, corporate ladder, save X% of your paycheck, contribute to your 401k, invest in mutual funds, buy and hold paychecks, pensions, benefits, diversify, raise your insurance deductibles, the stock market, say no to expensive lattes, be frugal, get out of debt, clip coupons, cancel your credit cards, dollar cost averaging, get an advanced degree, pay off your house early, your home is an asset, individual. Retirement accounts, IRAs, live below your means, understand compound interest. When you encounter these buzz phrases, be wary, someone is selling you the slow lane as a total plan to wealth. While coupons and other slow lane strategies aren't worthless in a plan, they shouldn't be the plan. The slow lane as a total plan is the problem, not the slow lane being a part of a plan. This distinction is critical because financial discipline must transcend to any wealth campaign. The Slow Lane Roadmap, a mathematical introduction. How is wealth created in the slow lane? To expose its method, and its weakness, you need to reverse engineer and deconstruct the strategy down to its mathematical roots, or its wealth equation. In other words, you want to expose the plan's theoretical speed limits for wealth, which is always determined by two variables, your primary income source, a job, and your wealth acceleration vehicle, market investments. These two variables formulate the slow lane's wealth equation and governs its wealth creation power or, in this case, futility. Wealth equals primary income source, job, plus wealth accelerator, market investments. This equation factored looks like this: wealth equals intrinsic value plus compound interest. The primary income variable, intrinsic value, has two variables itself dependent on how you are paid within your job. It could be either intrinsic value equals hourly wage times hours worked, or intrinsic value equals yearly salary. Compound interest is derived from market investments, which is the universal concept that $X invested in the stock market today will be worth $X millions decades from now. In Chapter 12, we will examine the slow lane's mathematical constructs and exploit their true deficiency. Therein, you'll discover why society's plan, your parents' plan, the media's plan, and the guru's plan are horrific strategies for wealth. Have you sold your soul for a weekend? Your soul is worth more than a weekend. Banality followed by blindness is the side effect of slow lane institutionalization. In 2007, on a cold January morning, a violinist stationed himself in a Washington, D.C. train station and played 6 classical pieces from Bach. Except this was no ordinary violinist and it was no ordinary violin. This was an incognito Joshua Bell, one of the greatest musicians in the world, who nights earlier had played to a sold-out concert hall in Boston for nearly $100 a ticket. As Joshua played his $3.5 million violin in the midst of the morning commuter rush, approximately 2,000 people passed through the station, most of them on their way to work. He played continuously for 45 minutes. Only 6 people stopped to listen briefly. No crowd formed. About 20 folks gave money but continued onward at a brisk pace. When he finished, there was silence except for the rhythmic hustle of a busy train station. No applause. No crowd. No recognition. This experiment, conducted by the Washington Post, uncovers something incredibly powerful and disturbing. Not even the greatest musician in the world can illuminate the blinding depths of the rat race and those entrenched by its indifference. Have you become so numbed by making a living that the living has been sucked out of your life? Are you so blinded by Monday through Friday that any beauty that sings before you is muted? The train commuters come and go like zombies, they're oblivious to the splendor of Monday through Friday. Yet, what if this experiment occurred on Saturday? Would its outcome be any different? This story exposes the slow lane for its contempt. When you trade your life mindlessly for a paycheck, you risk being blinded to life itself as you cursively walk by it in a busy train station. Life does not begin on Friday night and end Monday morning. Slow lane weapons. Go to school, get good grades, graduate, pay yourself first overtime, corporate ladder, save X% of your paycheck, contribute to your 401k, invest in mutual funds, buy and hold paychecks, pensions, benefits, diversify, raise your insurance deductibles, the stock market, say no to expensive lattes, be frugal, get out of debt, clip coupons, cancel your credit cards, dollar cost averaging, get an advanced degree, pay off your house early, your home is an asset, individual. Retirement accounts, IRAs, live below your means, understand compound interest. When you encounter these buzz phrases, be wary, someone is selling you the slow lane as a total plan to wealth. While coupons and other slow lane strategies aren't worthless in a plan, they shouldn't be the plan. The slow lane as a total plan is the problem, not the slow lane being a part of a plan. This distinction is critical because financial discipline must transcend to any wealth campaign. The Slow Lane Roadmap, a mathematical introduction. How is wealth created in the slow lane? To expose its method, and its weakness, you need to reverse engineer and deconstruct the strategy down to its mathematical roots, or its wealth equation. In other words, you want to expose the plan's theoretical speed limits for wealth, which is always determined by two variables: your primary income source, a job, and your wealth acceleration vehicle, market investments. These two variables formulate the slow lane's wealth equation and governs its wealth creation power, or, in this case, futility. Wealth equals primary income source, job, plus wealth accelerator, market investments. This equation factored looks like this: wealth equals intrinsic value plus compound interest. The primary income variable, intrinsic value, has two variables itself dependent on how you are paid within your job. It could be either intrinsic value equals hourly wage times hours worked, or intrinsic value equals yearly salary. Compound interest is derived from market investments, which is the universal concept that $X invested in the stock market today will be worth $X millions decades from now. In Chapter 12, we will examine the slow lane's mathematical constructs and exploit their true deficiency. Therein, you'll discover why society's plan, your parents' plan, the media's plan, and the guru's plan are horrific strategies for wealth. Have you sold your soul for a weekend? Your soul is worth more than a weekend. Banality followed by blindness is the side effect of slow lane institutionalization. In 2007, on a cold January morning, a violinist stationed himself in a Washington, D.C. train station and played 6 classical pieces from Bach. Except this was no ordinary violinist, and it was no ordinary violin. This was an incognito Joshua Bell, one of the greatest musicians in the world, who nights earlier had played to a sold-out concert hall in Boston for nearly $100 a ticket. As Joshua played his $3.5 million violin in the midst of the morning commuter rush, approximately 2,000 people passed through the station, most of them on their way to work. He played continuously for 45 minutes. Only 6 people stopped to listen briefly. No crowd formed. About 20 folks gave money but continued onward at a brisk pace. When he finished, there was silence except for the rhythmic hustle of a busy train station. No applause. No crowd. No recognition. This experiment, conducted by the Washington Post, uncovers something incredibly powerful and disturbing. Not even the greatest musician in the world can illuminate the blinding depths of the rat race and those entrenched by its indifference. Have you become so numbed by making a living that the living has been sucked out of your life? Are you so blinded by Monday through Friday that any beauty that sings before you is muted? The train commuters come and go like zombies, they're oblivious to the splendor of Monday through Friday. Yet, what if this experiment occurred on Saturday? Would its outcome be any different? This story exposes the slow lane for its contempt. When you trade your life mindlessly for a paycheck, you risk being blinded to life itself as you cursively walk by it in a busy train station. Life does not begin on Friday night and end Monday morning. Thank God it's Friday. Born and bred in the slow lane. A friend recently berated me because I declined to go out on a Saturday night. Are you crazy? It's Saturday night, he wailed. I told him something a slow laner doesn't understand. For me, every day is a Saturday because I haven't sold off Monday through Friday. Wealth's provenance evolves from the 3 F's: family, fitness, and freedom. Freedom's value to wealth is evidenced on Friday evenings, which just so happened to be the setting for an epic conversation I had with my friend at a happy hour. While we sat on the bar's patio, we heard a chattering cacophony of patrons engaged in spirited conversation. The bar was happening, and within the rustling soundtrack, you'd never guess a recession was ongoing. Over the noise, I asked my friend, "What do you hear?" "I hear people having a great time, a celebration," she said. I asked further, "Why?" "Why what?" "It's Friday," she declared. I probed further. "What's so special about Friday? If we came here on Monday, this place would be empty and the sound of celebration would be absent. What makes Friday so special as opposed to Monday or Wednesday?" Knowing that she was trapped into one of my paradoxical interrogations, she humored me. People get paid on Friday." I levied the verdict: Friday evening is glorified because people celebrate the dividends of their trade, 5 days of work bondage exchanged for 2 days of unadulterated freedom. Saturday and Sunday is the payment for Monday through Friday, and Friday evening symbolizes the emergence of that payment, freedom for 2 days. The prostitution of Monday through Friday is the reason, thank God it's Friday, exists. On Friday, people are paid freedom in the currency of Saturday and Sunday. -60%, the dismal return of the slow lane. The ultimate insanity is to sell your soul Monday through Friday for the paycheck of Saturday and Sunday. Yes, give me $5 today and in return I'll give you $2 back tomorrow. 5, 4, 2. No. How about 5 loaves of bread today and in return, I'll give you 2 back tomorrow? No again. Why? This is a smoking deal. Hopefully you recognize that 5 of anything in exchange for 2 is a bad return. The 5, 4, 2 return on investment is a -60%. If you make consistent -60% return on investments, you'd go bankrupt quick. What logical person would accept such a horrific deal? Most likely, you already do. When you accept the slow lane roadmap as your strategy, you accept 5, 4, 2. You give 5 days of work servitude in exchange for 2 days of weekend freedom. Yes, Monday through Friday is prostituted for Saturday and Sunday. While people easily recognize and reject a -60% return on their money, they do it willingly with their time. If you have children, you have to question this normality. Kids grow on Mondays and Tuesdays. I've heard they grow on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays too. Yes, they don't wait for the weekend to grow up. When little Miranda speaks her first word, walks her first walk, dances the first dance, she doesn't care if you're in Houston for the quarterly managers meeting. Kids and relationships don't wait for the weekend to grow, and while you're out trading 5, 4, 2, guess what? The kids get older and so do you. People who are bankrupt with time see their freedom, their families, and their relationships disintegrate. Time is mismanaged because the slow lane is predicated on time. 5 days of servitude for 2 days of freedom is not a good trade unless you trade time into a system that can give you a better return on your time. Instead of 5, 4, 2 for life, how about a 5, 4, 2 trade that has the potential to blossom into a better ratio? Like 1, 4, 2 or 3, 4, 10. Would you make a 5, 4, 2 trade knowing that it could transform into a 1, 4, 10? Would that be something to invest in? While I worked my plan, I gave 7, 4, 0, I worked 7 days and didn't take a day off, because I knew the roads on my roadmap converged with dreams. I worked for a better ratio in the near future, not in 40 years. I controlled my destiny and eventually my time trade investment yielded a dividend of 40 years. Now I do 0, 4, 7. I work 0 days and get 7 days of freedom. Sadly, if you are entrenched in the slow lane, your options to shatter this -60% return for your freedom is restricted. Remember, wealth is defined by freedom, and if you require proof, look no further than Friday night when people celebrate freedom as the slow lane dictatorship takes a weekend furlough. Normal is condemnation to mediocrity. Revolutionary Road, the 2008 movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, does an excellent job portraying the slow lane's death grip. A young couple find themselves living in suburbia, going through the motions of life. The husband, DiCaprio, goes to work every morning and immerses himself in a crowd of his peers while his wife, Winslet, fills the role of the good housewife. Both instinctively know that something is wrong. They're settling. They've accepted normal. They've forsaken their dreams for the insane plan of everyone. Throughout the movie we witness their attempts to escape, and with perilous consequences. The problem is, we've been brainwashed to accept the slow lane roadmap as normal. The defective roadmap gains traction early in life and is sanctified as the commoner's only probable means to wealth. Sounds logical, right? Folks like us just don't get rich playing pro ball, rapping, singing, acting, or entertaining, so we're left with the slow lane. And for some, that just might be okay. But for the rest of us with big dreams, big goals, and big ideas, it just doesn't cut the mustard. Here's a slow lane story pulled from the pages of the Fastlane Forum, thefastlaneforum.com. In the quest for becoming wealthy, my life has become quite uncomfortable. It all started 5 years ago when I had nothing. I had turned 30 years old and I thought that living paycheck to paycheck was no way to live at all. I made a vow to myself that I would become wealthy. In order to do this, I took on a second job and saved all of the money from that job while I used the money from the first job to pay for my living expenses. Basically, the last 5 years of my life have been as such in order for me to save money, living and paying relatively cheap rent for an 8 by 13 foot room, using public transportation and a motorcycle for transportation. Working almost every day with no days off during the week, rarely eating out, never buying toys or nice things for myself or wife, almost never going out and having a good time with the second job and my economical lifestyle. I have managed to save about $50,000 in 5 years. It would have been more, but I lost a good $30,000 when I invested right before the Dow hit its peak in October of 2007. I've reached a breaking point. 5 years is a long time to live in a room no bigger than a jail cell. The jobs are mind-numbing. I feel like my life is a prison. I have a good lifestyle for saving money, but at the expense of my mental sanity and happiness as a human being. I just feel like I can't live like this any longer. The slow laner accepts an existence of frugality and sacrifice to a tipping point where life feels like incarceration. Does this guy's life seem awesome or mediocre? Will it merge with a dream? The slow lane plan forsakes the now for a faint promise of a wealthy future. I don't consider settle for less a strategy, which is why the slow lane is predisposed to mediocrity. Life isn't great, but it isn't so bad either. No, it could be better, but you've got to swap the slow lane for a new plan. Chapter Summary: Fast Lane Distinctions. The slow lane is a natural course correction from the sidewalk, evolving from taking responsibility and accountability. Wealth is best experienced when you're young, vibrant, and able, not in the twilight of your life. The slow lane is a plan that takes decades to succeed, often requiring masterful political prowess in a corporate environment. For the slow laner, Saturday and Sunday is the paycheck for Monday through Friday. The default return on your time in the slow lane is negative 60%, 5-4-2. The 5-4-2 trade inherent in the slow lane is generally fixed and cannot be manipulated, because job standards are 5 days a week. The predisposed destination of the slow lane is mediocrity. Life isn't great, but it isn't so bad either. Fast Lane 11. The criminal trade: your job. By working faithfully 8 hours a day, you may eventually get to be the boss and work 12 hours a day. Robert Frost. I spent 5 years in college for a phone book. Before college graduation, I humored myself and attended a few job workshops. One I remember vividly, an entry-level position at a big insurance firm in Chicago. During our introduction at the corporate facility, the company recruiters told us exactly what to expect. Over there, pointing to a sea of cubicles, is where our new hires sit. I won't be coy, in the beginning this job is difficult. We give you 3 things: a desk, a telephone, and a telephone book. You will spend 10 hours a day cold calling to build your clientele. I know, not glamorous, but the rewards. At that point the rewards were inconsequential and I went into acting mode. I acted interested. I acted happy. I acted like it was acceptable. It wasn't. I spent 5 years in college just to sit in a 6x6 cubicle and cold call elderly people out of a damn telephone book. Are you freaking kidding me? I could have done this out of middle school, and I didn't need to spend thousands on a college degree to hawk insurance. Yet, my peers salivated at the opportunity of having a nice base salary, a great 401k, and a top-tier health plan. No thanks. If I'm cold calling out of the damn phone book, it won't be for my boss, but for me. Jobs, domestication into normalcy. If you want to escape the slow lane, find wealth and freedom fast, you've got to dump the job. Let me repeat. Dump the damn job. Jobs suck. I mean that generically, not targeted toward a specific job. Whether you're an electrician or a store manager, you hold a job. Jobs suck because they're rooted in limited leverage and limited control. Sure, you can have a great job, and a fun one too, but in the scope of wealth, they limit both leverage and control, two things desperately needed if you want wealth. Here are 6 sucky reasons your financial plan shouldn't revolve around a job, the nucleus to the slow lane. Suckage number 1, to trade time is to trade life. Who taught us that trading time in exchange for money was a great idea? Why does this normalcy consistently translate into unrivaled suckage? If you're shackled to a job, you're engaged to a glorified exchange of your time, your life, for pieces of paper that grant you freedom. You sell your freedom to get freedom. Pretty stupid, huh? Jobs suck because they ravenously consume time. At a job, time trade is central to how you make money. A job is the basis for that horrific 5-4-2 exchange. But let me translate that word, time, differently, life. In a job, you sell your life for money. If you work, you get paid. If you don't work, you don't get paid. Who officiated this blood-sucking marriage? Here is a list of common jobs and how long you have to work just to earn $1 million. If you diligently save 10% of your earnings and stuff it under a mattress, your time to $1 million multiplies by a factor of 10. Do you have 300 years to save your way to $1 million? Wouldn't it make sense to get paid regardless of what you're doing? Get paid while you sleep, while you have fun, while you poop, while you sit on the beach. Why not get paid with the simple passage of time and make time work for you instead of against you? Does that exist? It does, but it doesn't come from a slow lane. Suckage number 2, limitation on experience. I learned more as an entrepreneur in 2 months than I did working 10 years at dozens of dead-end jobs. The problem with a specialized skill set is, it narrows your useful value to a confined set of marketplace needs. You become one of many cogs in a wheel. And if that cog becomes obsolete or expendable, guess what? You're out of luck. For example, thousands of auto workers have been displaced because their jobs have been outsourced or replaced by robotics. Experience doesn't help them, it hinders them. Remember typewriters? How is the typewriter repairman doing these days? How about stockbrokers? Travel agents? Dying breeds of jobs move out of favor like fashion fads. 1 year your skill set has value, the next, it doesn't. Second, job experience is usually regimented into a core group of activities that is routinely repeated over and over again, day after day. After the initial learning experience, the job becomes regimented and accumulation of new knowledge creeps to a crawl. A job limits learning and mutates into life's death knell, a trade of life force for money. Experience comes from what you do in life, not from what you do in a job. You don't need a job to get experience. Ask yourself this, which experience is more important? The experience of a menial job designed to pay your bills? Or the experience, and failures, of creating something that could provide you financial freedom for a lifetime without ever having to hold a job again? Suckage number 3, no control. A job is like sitting in the bed of a pickup truck. You're exposed to the harsh elements while the driver of the truck sits comfortably in the driver's seat. And if the ride gets rough, you get jacked around or worse, tossed overboard. There is no control sitting in the back of a pickup truck, and to have this strategy at the heart of your financial plan is asinine. If you don't control your income, you don't control your financial plan. If you don't control your financial plan, you don't control your freedom. Millions obediently sing the employee kumbaya, believing that a job is central to supporting themselves. Sure, a job can support you, but is your goal only support? Do you want wealth or mediocrity? If the momentum of your financial road trip can be roadblocked by a pink slip, you're gambling. You aren't being real, you're being stupid. There is neither safety nor security in a job. Suckage number 4, Linda's bad breath. I have people in my family who are lifelong employees. I hear about their trials and toils. Despite 24 different jobs over the years, I noticed nothing changes when it comes to office politics. It's the same story, different people, different day, in a different office. So-and-so is sleeping with the boss and courting favor. Jim is lazy but takes credit for the work. Linda has bad breath and everyone is afraid to tell her. Lacey arrives late and leaves early. Horace steals food and wears the same sport jacket every day. Lazy Lester never replaces the copier paper. Same stories, different office. No matter where you work, office politics play a part. The stage is different but the actors are the same. And, unfortunately, as an employee immersed in the work environment, you have to play the game. You have to be obedient or face retribution from coworkers or your boss. I can remember my friend's after-work rants as she toiled at a high-carbohydrate corporate environment. Everything had a process. Got an idea? Great, send it to the boss sends it to his boss, who then hands it off to legal, who then sends it back to her boss's boss for revisions, who sends it back, blah blah blah. By the time the idea gets anywhere it's either stale or 4 other people have staked a claim to it. Who needs this entangled web destroying your sanity? The only defense to office politics is to control the playing field, and to do that, you have to be the boss. And to be the boss, you not only need to run the show, you need to own it. Suckage number 5, a subscription to pay yourself last, pay yourself first, is a slow lane doctrine. The problem is that it's near impossible in a job. Local, state, and federal governments heavily tax earned income, and your options to shield that income from taxation is limited to contributions to 401 Burmese Chats and IRAs, which are also limited, 10% of your income or a maximum of $16,500, whichever is less. If you diligently trade your life and ascend into corporate management, expect 50% of your money to disappear before it touches your hands. As an employee, you immediately receive a subscription to pay yourself last, and yes, that subscription arrives even if you don't subscribe. If you are paying yourself last and everyone gets your money first, don't expect to build wealth fast. Suckage number 6, a dictatorship on income. Ever get hit with a 1000% pay raise from your boss? Imagine this, impressed at the obvious returns you've provided at your job, you confidently stroll into your boss's office and demand a raise. I bring value to this company, you argue. I'm reliable and rarely call in sick. Your boss takes a defensive posture, crosses his arms, tilts his head skyward, and leisurely reclines in his big, red executive chair. You take a deep breath and let it ride. Therefore, sir, I'd like a 1000% pay raise. Your boss emits a guttural groan. He lurches forward, ends his recline and hammers his hands to the desk. Okay, what's the joke? I'm busy, he snipes. You reply, no joke. I'm serious. I make $9 an hour. I want a raise to $90 an hour. How about this? You'll get nothing and like it. Get out of my office, quit wasting my time, and if you do it fast, I won't fire you. How about that for an offer? You stammer out. I guess the boss didn't think the 1000% pay raise was doable. This scenario would never happen. As an employee, you can't demand a pay raise greater than 10%, let alone 1000%. Yet, as an employee of any company, this is your playing field. Your value is dictated and the job becomes a wealth delimiter with limitations that cannot be subverted. A job seals your fate into a criminal time trade, 5 days of life traded for 2 days of freedom. A job chains you to a set grade of experience. A job takes away your control. A job forces you to work with people you can't stand. A job forces you to get paid last. A job imposes a dictatorship on your income. These limitations are counterinsurgencies to wealth. Still want a job? Chapter summary, Fastlane distinctions. In a job, you sell your freedom, in the form of time, for freedom, in the form of money. Experience is gained in action. The environment of that action is irrelevant. Wealth accumulation is thwarted when you don't control your primary income source. Fastlane 12. The slow lane, why you aren't rich. Somebody should tell us, right at the start of our lives, that we are dying. Then we might live life to the limit, every minute of every day. Do it. I say. Whatever you want to do it now. There are only so many tomorrows. Michael Landon. Exposing slow lane ineptitude. If the slow lane is your get-rich strategy, one can make a likely assumption: you're not rich and you never will be. Wow, how could I be so sure? Simple. The slow lane strategy is rooted in uncontrollable limited leverage, or ULL, pronounced UL. If you need help remembering this important concept, just think, if the slow lane is your plan, ULL, never get rich. Uncontrollable limited leverage is the disturbing evidence that proves the slow lane's futility. How do you get rich in the slow lane? You get a great paying job, save money, live frugal, invest in the stock market, and repeat for 50 years. If you mine this strategy into its mathematical constructs, you'll find that the variables that define the plan cannot be controlled nor leveraged. Uncontrollable limited leverage, ULL, Part 1. Why is ULL so important? To accumulate financial wealth, you need to attract large sums of money. To attract large sums of money, you need two things: 1, control, and 2, leverage. The slow lane has neither, and that truth is exposed when you reverse engineer the strategy into its mathematical equivalent, or its wealth universe. Uncover the mathematics behind the plan and you uncover its weakness. When the slow lane is deconstructed, you find two variables: 1, the primary income source, which defines how income is earned, and 2, the wealth accelerator, which defines how wealth is accumulated. The slow laner's primary income source comes from a job, while the wealth acceleration vehicle comes from market investments, like 401 Burmese chats and mutual funds. Put it together and you arrive at the slow laner's wealth equation: wealth equals job plus market investments, the primary income source. The wealth accelerator under this plan, income from a job, funds both lifestyle and market investments. However, to uncover the prohibitive ULL within the plan, we have to factor these variables further, starting with the job variable. The warden of wealth, intrinsic value. How is money earned in a job? Intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is determined by the marketplace and is the price at which you can trade your time for money. Intrinsic value is what you earn working a job. How much is someone willing to pay you for what you offer to society? Intrinsic value is measured in units of time, either hourly or annually. If you're paid $10 per hour to flip burgers at the neighborhood grill, your intrinsic value is $10 per hour. If you're an accountant and earn a $120,000 annual salary, your intrinsic value is $120,000 per year. Job, intrinsic value, equals hourly rate of pay times hours worked, or job, intrinsic value, equals annual salary. Notice that intrinsic value is measured in units of time. This time attachment introduces the slow lane's first punitive element of wealth creation. Can you control time? Can you leverage time? You can't. Your time is limited to 24 hours of exchange. If you earn $200 per hour, you can't miraculously demand to work 400 hours in one day. If you earn $50,000 per year, you can't miraculously demand to work 400 years in your life. Time has no leverage. For the hourly worker, your maximum upper limit is 24 hours, and guess what? There's nothing you can do to change this limit. In theory, you can trade 24 hours of your day for income, but you can't trade more. Of course, working 24 hours a day is humanly impossible, so 8 to 12 hours per day are traded. For the salaried worker, the prohibition is the same. You can't work more years than your normal life expectancy. What is the upper limit of this exchange? 40, 50 years. In all of recorded history, no human has ever worked 10,000 years of his or her life. Whether you're paid hourly or annually, it doesn't matter, you can't leverage time. Consider this. Is 12 a large number? Or 50? Are these numbers predisposed to create millionaires? They aren't, and it exposes why the mathematics of a job are wealth punitive. Your time is limited to small numbers and cannot be leveraged. Hours worked, or annual salary, are mathematically inept because they're based on time measurements that cannot be controlled or manipulated. Mathematics doesn't lie, 12 will always be less than 10 million. If leverage is limited, so is wealth creation. Small numbers do not make millionaires. Behind limited leverage is another corrosive wealth killer: no control. Can you control your employer? Can you control your salary? Can you control the economy? Can you earn $50,000 one year and next year bank $50 million? Can you control anything about your job, including your measly 4% pay raise? You might think you can by job hopping, but you can't. Control is weak, if not absent. Compound interest. What they don't tell you: the second variable in the slow lane wealth equation is the primary wealth accelerator, which comes from market investments like mutual funds, 401 Burmese chats, and other traditional investments touted by gurus and financial advisors. These investments use the financial strategy known as compound interest, which is a mathematical construct that outlines the power of interest accumulation over great periods of time. The fundamental cell of compound interest is the old guru swan song regurgitated ad nauseum: $10,000 invested today will be worth gazillions in 40 years. Invest $250 a month for 50 years and you will retire rich. Used correctly, compound interest is a powerful ally to wealth, used for slow lane purposes, and it dredges the wealth road trip to a crawl. Why? Again, the puzzle is solved if you exploit the math. The answer plays sibling to why a job won't make you rich: time. Wealth creation via compound interest requires the passing of time and lots of it. Like a job, compound interest, or market investments such as mutual funds and 401 Burmese chats, can't be leveraged nor can they be controlled. They rely on deficient math to create wealth. Inasmuch as the income you make in a job is measured in an hourly rate or an annual salary, the wealth acceleration process of compound interest is also measured in time, years, multiplied by a yearly yield. Let's again review the physics, the mathematical formula for the slow lane pathology to wealth. Wealth equals job plus market investments, the primary income source, the wealth accelerator, or factored. Wealth equals intrinsic value, yearly, plus compound interest, yearly, the primary income source, the wealth accelerator, factored further. Wealth equals time times hourly or salaried value, plus invested sometimes, 1 plus yield, time the primary income source, the wealth accelerator. Like a job, the flaw in compound interest lies in the same mathematical restrictions in which numbers work against you instead of for you. Take a look at this chart, which highlights the effect of compound interest and the $10,000 investment. Why mutual funds and 401 Burmese chats won't make you rich. In 2008, I went to a fixed income investment seminar given by a major brokerage house. Fixed income investments are instruments like municipal and corporate bonds. Approximately 50 people attended the standing room only seminar. I sat in the back and surveyed the crowd. Remove the gray hair, the socks and sandals combos, the canes, and the wheelchairs, and what was left? Just me. I was the youngest person in the room, and heck, I'm not even that young anymore. How does a 30-something get in a room full of retirees? The people in the room were slow lane success stories. They used time to accelerate wealth, and what it got them was old age. I don't say that to be mean-spirited to older generations, but to cast light on the point. Compound interest, 401 Burmese chats, mutual funds, the stock market, cannot accelerate wealth fast. According to research and marketing firm the Harrison Group, harrisongroupinc.com, only 10% of pentamillionaires, net worth $5 million, report that their wealth came from passive investments. Age data was not provided, but you can guess that none of the 10% were under 30. Think about it. Have you ever met a college student who got rich investing in mutual funds or his employer's 401k? How about the guy who bought municipal bonds in 2006 and retired in 2009? I wonder if that guy driving a $1.2 million car can because of his well-balanced portfolio of mutual funds. These people don't exist because the youthful rich are not leveraging 8% returns but 800%. Has your wealth ever grown by 800% in 1 year? Probably not, but guess what? Mine has, because I'm not shackled to the slow lane wealth equation. My wealth acceleration vehicle doesn't come from the stock market. Yet, you've been domesticated to believe that these tools accelerate wealth. Mutual funds, stocks, bonds, 401 Burmese chats, dollar cost averaging, and compound interest are perfunctory stratagem for wealth acceleration in the slow lane. Unfortunately, without control or leverage, they're impotent wealth accelerators. Buy and hold is dead. In college, I was taught buy and hold was the safe investment strategy that made millions. Buy stocks in solid companies, sit back and wait decades, and voila, I'd be awash with millions. They'd shove that graph in your face and say, a $10,000 investment in XYZ company in 1955 would be worth $5 million today. Thankfully, I ignored it. In 1997, I opened a Roth IRA with $1,000 and invested the monies in a growth mutual fund at a major investment firm. Yes, I let the professionals manage it for me. For the next decade, I didn't touch it. Essentially, I forgot about the account. In the 10 years that followed, I made over $10 million by following a Fastlane roadmap and leveraging Fastlane strategy. And what about that Roth IRA opened years ago? I never touched it and let it ride the ebbs and flow of the slow lane. Today that account is worth $698. $698. With inflation, the real purchasing power is $500. My spare change bucket on my kitchen table was a better investment. Had I invested $1 million, I'd have lost more than $400,000. And this is the slow laner's anointed weapon of wealth. Hilarious. Millions worship the slow lane roadmap with buy and hold as Main Street, a main street that is decades long, imperiled by hazards, and rarely routes to wealth. I recently heard a slow lane prognosticator proclaim the effectiveness of get rich slow by citing this tasty factoid. If at the end of 1940 you had invested $1,000 in the stocks of the S&P 500, you would now have $1,341,513. So let's examine this fact, assuming it is fact. 1. It's 1940 and assume you are 21 years old. 2. It's 1940 and you somehow got your hands on $1,000, which in today's dollars is about $15,000. 3. You took that $1,000 in 1940's money and did as above. Congratulations. It is now 2011 and you are 91 years old, rich with $1,341,513. Or if you were lucky to get your $1,000 on birth, you'd now be 71 years old. Yes, folks, it's time to get excited. Get rich slow is going to make you rich. Just ignore your 74-year life expectancy and make sure your wheelchair comes equipped with chrome rims. Seriously, how does anyone get excited over this crap? The slow lane's traitorous relationship with time, compound interest, and a job have the same disease, the sinful and gluttonous consumption of your time while forsaking control. Both variables within the slow lane wealth equation are anchored by time, time traded in a job and time traded in market investments. Time becomes the linchpin for wealth that congenitally ties to the mathematical handicaps of mortality, 24 hours in a day and a 50-year work-life expectancy. Yes, getting rich is a function of time. Unless you plan on living forever, this relationship is dubiously foolhardy. Why? Because to trade your time away is to trade your wealth away. Examine these pathetically common examples. Assume a 5% savings rate on gross salary and an annual investment yield of 8% per year. We'll exclude taxes and inflation. Salary at $25,000 per year, save $1,250 per year, invested over 40 years at 8% equals $362,895. Salary at $50,000 per year, save $2,500 per year, invested over 40 years at 8% equals $725,791. Salary at $75,000 per year, save $3,750 per year, invested over 40 years at 8% equals $1,088,686. Salary at $100,000 per year, save $5,000 per year, invested over 40 years at 8% equals $1,451,581. Salary at $150,000 per year, save $7,500 per year, invested over 40 years at 8% equals $2,177,132. Don't get enamored with the numbers. Keep in mind this is 40 years from now. If you are 20 years old, you will be 60 years old. If you are 30 years old, you will be 70 years old. If you are 40 years old, you'll be dead. Sorry, but that's beyond life expectancy. So at these ages, does this money and the freedom it buys sound appealing? Also, do you realize that this money will have 50% of today's buying power? 40 years ago you could buy a car for $3,000 and a loaf of bread for 20 cents. Lest we not forget the other lofty assumptions, gainful employment and a robust economy that behests a safe 8% per year. In 2008 the markets lost 50%. I guess the gurus forgot to mention these anomalies. Folks, you don't want millions to accompany your cane, you want it to accompany your youth. Every day, people sacrifice their time for tiny nuggets of wealth, where time is the liability and not the asset. Anything that steals time and doesn't have the power to free time is a liability. Within the slow lane, time is mistreated like an effervescent fountain that runs forever. Unfortunately, the mortality rate is 100% and life's prognosis is death. Someday you will die, and, hopefully, 60% of your time wasn't squandered in a cubicle while your children grew up and your spouse cheated with the yoga instructor. The slow lane is a plan of hope. The slow lane dilutes your control. You're reading this book because you want to control your financial destiny, not put it in the hands of some company or the stock market. If you want to get rich, you have to control and leverage the variables in your financial plan. Any financial plan without control immediately disintegrates into a plan of hope. Hope I don't get laid off. Hope my stocks rebound. Hope I get that promotion. Hope my hours aren't cut. Hope my company doesn't go bankrupt. Hope, hope, and hope. Sorry, hope isn't a plan. The slow lane plan rests in a mathematical prison, with time as the warden. To create explosive wealth fast, you must abandon the slow lane formula and its lecherous relationship to time. Wealth is built with time as an asset, not as a liability. Yet, the slow laner's reaction to uncontrollable limited leverage is predictable. They embark on an errant fight against the one variable they perceive as controllable, their intrinsic value. The slow laner argues, I must make more money. And that fight is fought futilely with an expensive education. Chapter Summary: Fast Lane Distinctions. Slow lane wealth is improbable due to uncontrollable limited leverage, ULL. The first variable in the slow lane wealth equation evolves from a job that factors to intrinsic value that equates to your nominal value for each unit of your life traded. Intrinsic value is the value of your time set by the marketplace and is measured in units of time, either hourly or yearly. In the slow lane, intrinsic value, regardless of its time measurement, is numerically inhibited because there are only 24 hours in the day for the hourly worker, and the average lifespan is 74 years for the salaried worker. Like the slow laner's primary income source, a job, the slow laner's wealth acceleration vehicle, compound interest, is also pegged to time. Like a job, compound interest is mathematically futile and cannot be manipulated. You cannot force-feed the market, or the economy, to give you phenomenal returns, year after year. Wealth cannot be accelerated when pegged to mathematics based on time. Time is your primordial fuel and it should not be traded for money. Your time should not be an expendable resource for wealth because wealth itself is composed of time. Your mortality makes time mathematically retarded for wealth creation. If you don't control the variables inherent in your wealth universe, you don't control your financial plan. Fastlane 13. The Futile Fight. Education. The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education. Albert Einstein. The fight against uncontrollable limited leverage. Education. The slow laner's natural reaction to the uncontrollable limited leverage, ULL, inherent in their wealth equation is to wage war with intrinsic value by deploying the education weapon. Since ULL defines the slow lane, the slow laner rationalizes that the only variable worthy of escalation is their rate of pay. I need to make 6 figures. I need to make more money. So, predictably, they go back to school and get an MBA or some certification. They'll argue, MBA grads earn 15% more, or the starting salary of a certified PMP is $120,000 a year. For example, Steve Ambrose enrolls into an MBA program to sweeten his credentials. The cost of the MBA is $44,000 and 800 hours. Steve justifies this twofold expense, time and money, because he anticipates his intrinsic value to rise. Upon completion, Steve expects to be worth more to his company and worth more in the competitive marketplace. Unfortunately, he still trades his time for money, just at a higher rate, yet still uncontrolled and unleveraged. Another example is my friend who enrolled in a project management certification class that ate 5 8-hour Saturdays from her life and cost $2,700. Her goal? A project management credential that would raise her intrinsic value in the marketplace. As a certified project manager, she exposes herself to new opportunities at higher grades of pay. But still, a trade of time for money. Whether consciously or not, the slow laner believes that elevating intrinsic value can create wealth. Want to be highly paid right out of college? Go to medical school and become a doctor. As a physician, your intrinsic value is now worth $200 per hour. Become an engineer, a lawyer, or an accountant, all highly paid, professional, salaried positions. Typically, a formal college education is used to serve slow lane purposes, an explicit attempt to raise intrinsic value. Fight that intrinsic value variable. Not all education is created equal. The problem with formal education used to raise intrinsic value is that it's ungodly expensive in time and money. Not a week goes by when I don't hear about some freshly minted MBA graduate who struggles to pay his student loans while working a mid-grade job he could have gotten out of high school. Debt that traps you to a job is not good debt. A preoccupation to become highly educated could be a Trojan horse to your freedom. Not all education is created equal. Some education can roadblock your wealth road trip. If an education entombs you under a mountain of debt and shackles you to a job for the rest of your life, is it really a good education? If an MBA increases your salary by 15% but takes 15 years to pay, was it a good investment? It's a great myth. To get rich you need an expensive college degree. Hogwash. A degree isn't a prerequisite to fast-lane wealth. Some of the richest fastlaners are people who never finished either high school or college. Bill Gates, Steven Spielberg, Richard Branson, Michael Dell, Felix Dennis, David Geffen, and John Paul DeJoria all dropped out of school to pursue fast-lane objectives. How dare they get rich and not be educated? Slow lane entrapment. Financing expensive college tuition for an education is a dangerous game that can lead to slow lane entrapment, conformity and education servitude. A typical collegiate study progresses from general knowledge to very specific skill sets. For example, while studying finance I learned complex mathematical formulas that aided in financial decision-making, things like lease or buy and return on investment. These concepts are specific tools to a trade that can hinder your future options. The prescribed path for graduates with finance degrees was to get a job in the financial sector, an insurance company, an accounting firm, or an investment house. My education had the indirect and unintended consequence of restricting my options to specific disciplines based on an educative skill set. The result? Conformity and limited choice. If there aren't opportunities in my field, my education becomes marginalized and devalued. If the opportunities available require less education, say, a BS, than I have, MBA, I become overqualified and unemployable. If my skills erode in practicality based on technological evolution, my education becomes deprecated and my value to society plummets accordingly. The second educational entrapment danger is education servitude. While the sidewalker deals with lifestyle servitude, the slow laner wrestles with education servitude, freedom eroded by education, that traps the victim to a job. Has your education indentured you to a job? Advanced degrees are not cheap. According to the College Board, the average college degree, including room and board, now costs nearly $60,000. Prefer the prestige of a private school. The tab will set you back a Ferrari. This kind of debt buries the dreams of your youth and puts them permanently bound to the slow lane or worse, the sidewalk. Consider the statistics. In 2007, the Washington Post reported that, according to Nellie Mae, the big student loan service provider, by the time college students are seniors, 56% of them will have 4 or more credit cards with an average balance of $2,864. According to a research report by demos-usa.org, a public policy research and advocacy organization, people in the 18 to 24 age bracket spend nearly 30% of their monthly income on debt repayment. This is double from 20 years ago. A survey of college borrowers found that the average college senior graduated with nearly $19,000 in student loan debts, and graduate degree pursuers more than $45,000. A 2007 Charles Schwab survey revealed that teenagers believe when they get older they will earn an average salary of $145,000. The reality: adults with a college degree earned an average of $54,000. Unfortunately, the future isn't so bright that you have to wear shades. The truth behind reality and expectation is about a $100,000 chasm. This disparity might explain why the debts of our youth have exploded as they bridge their reality to expectation. If I can't make $145,000, I can look like I make $145,000. The best excuse people have for not having wealth is, I don't have time. Well, why don't you have time? Because you have a job. Why do you have a job? Because you need one. Why do you need one? Because you have bills to pay. Why do you have bills to pay? Because you have debt. Why do you have debt? Oh yes, because you went to school for 6 years and have 6 figures in student loans. If you financed your advanced education with debt, the debt automatically becomes parasitic and traps you into forced job servitude, and that destroys freedom. While you might earn more, work is forced to stave off the debt. The debt is parasitic because it fails to free time and instead creates indentured time. Sadly, the parasitic debt is unforgiving and isn't sympathetic to the source. Whether you owe $35,000 for your awesome BMW or for student loans, debt steals freedom and forces indentured time. Chapter Summary: Fast Lane Distinctions. Slow laners attempt to manipulate intrinsic value by education. Indentured time is time you spend earning a living. It is the opposite of free time. Parasitic debt is debt that creates indentured time and forces work. Fastlane 14. The hypocrisy of the gurus. There was a time when a fool and his money were soon parted, but now it happens to everybody. Adlai Stevenson. You've been duped. Suppose after college you're getting a bit pudgy around the middle and decide it's time to get back in shape. You enroll in a community college class called Healthy Nutrition, Eat Your Way to a Beautiful Body. On the first day of class, you arrive early, seat yourself, and anxiously await the class instructor. After a few minutes, an obese man walks into the room and waddles to the front of the class. You think, wow, he's fat, but he's here to change that. Good for him. As the man profusely sweats while fumbling with a stack of papers, you glance at the student chair near the man and wonder if he can fit on it. He's twice the size of the chair. Then suddenly you're hit with the paradox. This isn't a student but the instructor. Are you freaking kidding me? How can this man effectively teach a class called Healthy Nutrition, Eat Your Way to a Beautiful Body, when he is not a model of his teaching? How can anyone take him seriously? Bewildered at the hypocrisy, you leave the class and head to the bursar's office, intent on getting a tuition refund. When it comes to gurus and financial advisors, this is what you must do: leave class and request a refund because they're guilty of a paradox of practice. The paradox of practice. The paradox of practice asks, do you practice what you preach? Are you a model, an exemplification of what you teach? Would you take skin care advice from a butterface? Would you take financial advice from a bankrupt bum? Would you take medical advice from a sanitation worker? Would you take bodybuilding advice from a 90 pounds weakling? The paradox of practice is a heated debate in my forum. Some feel it's perfectly acceptable to preach a strategy for wealth yet never use it. Do as I say, not as I do. A paradox of practice exists when someone promotes a money-making strategy but that strategy is not what made him or her rich. In other words, they're not practitioners of their own advice. These people effectively teach one wealth equation, the slow lane, while they get rich leveraging another, the fast lane. When I see financial powerhouse Susie instructing people to dollar-cost average their mutual fund portfolios, do I listen to her? Hell no. I laugh. When Kramer advocates stock in Lehman Brothers because he says it's a good buy, do I listen? No way. I feel sorry for anyone who follows the investment advice of these people. I consider these people to be better entertainers than investment advisors. I have no love lost for the poor sap who lost his retirement savings because he listened to some CNBC pundit peddling some hot stock tip or investment advice. What is wrong with people? How do you not take responsibility for your financial plan? And then there's your uncle. You know the guy, the well-educated elder in your life who knows everything, including the molecular structure of dark matter in the Horsehead Nebula. His army of factoids is always ready for deployment, stock tips, the latest and greatest investments, money trends. Yet, lest you forget, he lives paycheck to paycheck. I call these people broke know-it-alls, people who dispense financial, money-making advice, and yet are dirt poor. These fat behemoths are walking hypocrisies on how to live a life of health and fitness. Listen to these folks with an entertainment expectation, not advice. Good advice comes from the guy who scores all the touchdowns, not the guy shut out in the fourth quarter. The best quarterbacking advice comes from Peyton Manning, not MJ DeMarco. Is a paradox of practice in play? In the game of money, money is the scorecard. If someone tells you how they scored, make sure they disclose their real method to wealth, not the illusion concealing the real culprit. Sadly, it's virtually impossible to get good, practical money advice, because most gurus live a paradox of practice. Yes, gurus are rarely rich because of their advice, but rich because they're successful fastlaners who covertly hide their paradox of practice. These paradoxical metaphors described earlier befit the hypocrisy of the people who you've entrusted with your financial roadmap. You're sold blindly down the river by a ride they've never completed. Meanwhile, they gaze at you comfortably above in their corporate jet, drinking champagne. No one tells you the real, unadulterated story behind their road to wealth, but I will. The slow lane roadmap is sanctimoniously trumpeted by best-selling book authors who dispense financial advice through TV, radio, and books. The strategies they sell are a travesty of grand illusions. Do you seriously think these people are rich from their preachings? Or, are they selling you the slow lane while they get rich in the fast lane? Let me hypothesis about the probable wizardry behind their charade. First is Susie. Susie preaches mutual funds, dollar cost averaging, 401 Burmese chats. We can absorb Susie in many media, radio, TV, and in any of her half-dozen books. Her grill is everywhere. She's the wretched slow lane poster child, a high-volume producer of slow lane junkets spewed to millions. So what's the problem? Ask yourself this: is Susie rich because she followed her own advice like municipal bonds, dollar cost averaging, and 401 Burmese chats? The probable hypocrisy, the paradox of practice, is that Susie's method of creating wealth doesn't appear to be the road she travels, nor teaches. Is Susie Fastlane rich because she leverages the Fastlane roadmap while she pitches you the slow lane? Is she worth millions because she followed her own advice? Or because she sold millions of books? Is her wealth equation different from the one she teaches? Things that make you go, In a 2007 article, Susie was quoted as admitting to having the bulk of her wealth, an estimated $25 million, in bonds, primarily municipals. Additionally, she admits that only 4% of her wealth is tied up in the stock market because, if I lose $1 million, personally I don't care. Wow, and yet, this is the vehicle you should entrust to build your wealth. How exactly did Ms. Susie acquire that $25 million nest egg? Because of her advice which champions the stock market, mutual funds, IRAs, bonds, and treasuries? Or, did she use the Fastlane roadmap, amass wealth fast via explosive net income, and then pour her wealth into these instruments? Yet, her advice for people at the precipice of poverty is that they should invest in the stock market to create wealth when it appears like she hasn't. Folks, the rich use the markets for income and wealth preservation, not to create it. Then there's David. As I thumbed through David's many books, I was inundated with an alarming quantity of slow lane ilk, compound interest tables, save 10% of your paycheck, stop drinking expensive coffee, and other chronic slow lane diatribes. Again, the paradox of practice rears its ugly mug. Did David get rich from his advice? Or from selling 11 books, over and over several million times, often regurgitating the same slow lane sludge until you can't take it anymore? And finally, we have Robert, who hails from Hawaii and has two dads, one rich, one poor. Double Dad Robert bellicosely explains the real definition of assets and that sophisticated investors are deep into real estate. On national television, Robert once bragged about his Lamborghini, and I found this extravagant exposition ironic, yet disingenuous. Why? Isn't Robert showcasing the fruit of his teachings? Perhaps. Robert is a fast-lane success story. He created and built a brand worth millions. But the curious question is this: which came first? The best-selling book or the Lamborghini? Is there a paradox of practice underneath? Did Robert have this status icon pre-book by leveraging his real estate teachings? Or did the Lamborghini arrive after selling millions of books? Robert has undoubtedly amassed a great deal of wealth selling books, games, and seminars. Is it possible you're being sold one wealth equation while the architect of the game uses another? Gurus fill a market need, and I don't deny it. However, consider this: are they being truthful about their paradox and their magic potion? Are they rich because of what they preach, or what they sell? Once you're familiar with fast-lane mathematics, it should become clear to you which gurus are likely guilty of the paradox. Is the underlying mathematical equation which governs their teachings the same one that made them rich? If the "do as I say" doesn't match the "do as I do," you should be suspicious. What makes me different is this: the fast-lane concepts in this book gave me financial independence. I already have financial freedom, the nice house, the sports cars, and the flashy wrapper credit card. I don't need this book to get me these things. I also confess this fast-lane disclaimer: this book has the power to make me wealthier because it leverages the same wealth equation I teach you. In other words, the "do as I say" matches the "do as I do." Slow lane gurus admit failure on a slow lane financial radio show. A caller sought advice. In a few months, the recession destroyed more than 50% of her savings, which had taken her nearly 10 years to accumulate. The slow lane guru's advice: a palliative, stick to the plan. Recommit. Rebuild. In other words, my crappy plan has failed you, has taken 11 years to fail you, yet stand by it. Hope the economy rebounds. Hope the economy never sees another recession. Hope, hope, and hope. And yes, please buy my newest book, Rebuild. Economic recessions expose the slow lane as a risky fraud with lifetime ramifications. Since these gurus make their rich livelihood selling the slow lane roadmap, they need you to believe it works. Their wealth comes from your belief. Despite the current recession's masterful exposé, the slow lane Illuminati will never admit that their strategy is woefully inept, and instead they have deviously recalibrated their message to conceal the truth. They continue to spew the same failed rhetoric by writing new books, with new titles and new platitudes. Titles like, Rebuild Your Wealth. Start Over. Recommit. Notice the shift in language, exposing the truth. If the plan is so good, why do you need to rebuild or start over? If the strategy worked, such words wouldn't be necessary. For the charade to continue, the gurus need to reinforce the strategy with new books selling the same old shit. And the bigger question: do you think the gurus need to start over or rebuild? Of course not. They don't use the plan they sell. They operate in an entirely different wealth universe not predicated on uncontrollable limited leverage. Chapter summary: Fast lane distinctions. Take advice from people with a proven, successful track record of their espoused discipline. Many money gurus often suffer from a paradox of practice. They teach one wealth equation while getting rich in another. They're not rich from their own teachings. Fast lane 15. Slow lane victory. A gamble of hope. I'd rather live in regret of failure than in regret of never trying. M.J. DeMarco. Exodus. Life in the slow lane. Wealth by the slow lane roadmap is analogous to Exodus, the biblical story of Moses. God leads Moses out of Egyptian bondage into a daunting 40-year journey through the desert, with the promise of a glorious future in the land of milk and honey. After a lifetime of toil and struggle, Moses arrives at the doorstep to his destination and, wham! He dies. He never sees the promise of the journey because life has no guarantees. Sadly, slow lane wealth is akin to this long, perilous journey through the desert. It's a trip that takes decades to finish, starves your life, and makes no promises. Yes, graduate from college, get a good job, entrust your money to the stock market, serve the boss well, and you might be rewarded. In today's harrowing financial climate, I'm surprised people still believe it. But people do, and in legions. When I see sales figures for slow lane books, I'm dumbfounded. Millions sold. How sad. Millions being led astray down a path littered with dangerous potholes and detours, a road that takes years to travel for a far-fetched promise of a freer tomorrow. To assume that you will live a long, healthy life is arrogant. To assume that life won't throw you any curves is naive. For the slow lane to prevail, it assumes life is predictable and forgiving. It isn't. You lose your job. You get sick. The car needs a new transmission. You get married. You get divorced. You have kids. You have a child with special needs. You have aging parents who need care. The economy dips into recession or depression. Life is a menagerie littered with crisis points, which make the slow lane roadmap a risky bet that consumes your most precious asset, time. 7 slow lane dangers. People drive the slow lane because it's what they've been told to drive. They believe the risks are minimal and it's safe. After all, 90% of all new businesses fail after 5 years, so the fast lane can't be any safer. If you lob a little logic into the slow lane narratives, you'll find that it's extremely hazardous and a plan based entirely on hope. Assumptions, decades of them, expose the slow lane's true risks. Choose to travel the road and choose to gamble. Here are the risks. 1. The danger of your health. The slow lane hopes you will live long enough to enjoy the fruits of your savings as you hit your late-stage years. Remember, you will have millions when you retire at 65. Will you be healthy enough to enjoy it? Alive. If you can't work your job, you can't make money. If you can't work, what happens to this plan? Also, avoid other calamities. Hope your job stress doesn't kill you and your family remains healthy. 2. The danger of the job. The slow lane hopes that you'll be gainfully employed at all times, safely climbing the corporate ladder year after year. You must avoid layoffs, corporate politics, firings, poor industry cycles, job skill degradation, and bad job markets. 3. The danger of your home. Home equity is lauded as a middle-class wealth vehicle. Many gurus have shouted from the rooftops, retire on your home equity, and your home is an asset. Capital BS. The slow lane hopes that real estate values always rise, and it's patently false. In 2008, the value of my home equity plummeted $800,000. I disavow my home as an investment and, thankfully, I do not rely on it. 4. The danger of the company. Not many companies outlive the centuries. If your retirement faith is put into one company in the form of either 1, your job, 2, your pension, or 3, their stock, you hope the company survives. You make a bet. Many retirees discover too late that their retirement pensions are lost to mismanagement by company executives. Others who focus their wealth into one company stock accept great risk that the stock will be worth more in the future. If you assign your retirement unto others, you then accept external risks that you can't control. When the torque of your financial plan resides with others, you're likely to lose control. 5. The danger of your lifestyle. The slow lane begs you to settle and become a miser. Want to own an exotic car? Forget it. Want to live on a beach? Wishful thinking. If you cannot control your temptations of lifestyle improvement, a nicer home, a nicer car, a nicer meal out, the slow lane becomes slower and reverses course. The slow lane hopes your delayed gratification moves to no gratification. 6. The danger of the economy. The slow lane hopes that your investments will yield a predictable 8% return year after year. You must believe the theory that buy and hold works. It doesn't, because economic busts, recessions, and depressions happen. For example, in 2008 to 2009, the equity markets lost nearly 60%. If you saved for 15 years and amassed $100,000, it would now be worth $40,000. It would take you 14 years at 8% yearly returns just to get back even. That equates to almost 30 years gone. And this doesn't account for inflation, which makes your $100,000 more like $50,000. 7. The danger of the sidewalk. Frustrated slow laners often revert to the sidewalk. Why? Hope over control. When you can't control time, when you can't control your job, when you can't control 5 days of your life each week, you feel powerless. Emotions of helplessness create an environment ripe for instant gratification and lifestyle servitude. A study published in 2008 by the Journal of Consumer Research found that when people feel powerless and out of control, they have a strong desire to buy things that convey a high status. Why do they feel powerless? Simple. In the slow lane, you relinquish control because time is in control and the gates to the sidewalk reopen. Hope is not a plan. Resistance is futile. When you perform an autopsy on the slow lane, you see its true colors: it's slow, it eats time, and it's risky. When a slow laner realizes the plan isn't working, he goes into overdrive. Overdrive in the slow lane is like pushing a car's accelerator to the floor, hoping its upper speed limit somehow will mystically extend higher, when in fact, the racetrack itself is the problem, not the accelerator. Yet, a slow laner will try to manipulate his weak mathematical universe by trying to make the variables malleable. Manipulate intrinsic value by increasing hours worked. I need to make more money. Manipulate intrinsic value by changing jobs or adding jobs. I need to get paid more. Manipulate intrinsic value by going back to school. I need a better career. Manipulate compound interest by seeking better investment yields. I need better investments. Manipulate compound interest by expanding investment time horizon. I need more time. Manipulate compound interest by increasing the investment. I need to save more. Each of these 6 responses is a futile attempt to manipulate the impotence of the slow laner's wealth equation. Unfortunately, the limitations of the mathematics cannot be subverted, and doing so results in dangerous cause-effect cycles. When a slow laner wants to make more money, he increases his hours worked, switches to a better-paying job, or adds jobs. When a slow laner wants to get paid more, he goes back to school, hoping to increase intrinsic value. When a slow laner realizes that a 3% investment return isn't building wealth fast enough, bigger risks are assumed for bigger returns. When a slow laner watches 40% of his nest egg disappear in an economic recession, he goes back to work arguing that 5 years is not enough to get back to even. You can't overcome the limitations of mathematics. A car that has a top speed of 10 miles per hour will always have a top speed of 10 miles per hour, no matter how hard you push the accelerator. If you travel across the country at 10 miles per hour, you're going to need 40 years. The slow lane is predisposed to mediocrity because the numbers are always mediocre. The slow lane is risky because its variables are uncontrollable and leverage is absent. ULL really means ULL, never get rich. Yet, lifestyle is the one variable slow laners can effectively manipulate. Unfortunately, this quickly turns slow lane life into a stale exhibition of misery. Yes, settle for less. Wealth fail, wrong equation. Wrong variable. At some point, the slow laner realizes he can't force the stock market to yield bigger returns. He can't force a 200% pay raise. He can't afford an advanced education to raise intrinsic value. Job hopping offers little incremental pay upgrades. The slow laner is enslaved to his equation and resorts to manipulating the only controllable variable, personal net income, which is increased by reducing expenses. Personal net income equals intrinsic value, personal expenses. Slow lane gurus praise this strategy. The edicts are clear: pay down your debt. Dump the new car for an old one. Raise your insurance deductibles. Cancel your credit cards and pay cash for everything. Quit buying $10 coffee at Starbucks. Bag your lunch. Shop in bulk. Spend 4 hours clipping coupons. Come on, buddy, slash those expenses, someday you're going to be rich. Hilarious. These tiresome strategies are a classic response to being stuck in the slow lane. Lifestyle degradation. When you're married to a bad wealth equation, this is resistance. This is like getting a divorce by sleeping on the couch. Since wealth is tied to time and can't be controlled, you're left with kitchen scraps, lifestyle degradation in the form of expense reduction. Yup, become a cheapskate. Wrong. Hoodwinking expenses does not create wealth. Exploding income and controlling expenses creates wealth. For example, when I routinely earned $100,000 per month, I accumulated wealth fast because I maintained control over my expenses. As my income exponentiated, expenses grew linearly and weren't neglected. If my income increased by 100%, expenses only grew by 10%. I didn't accumulate wealth because of expense dickery. Income explosion and expense control created wealth. So what happens when a slow laner commits to the expense variable? Life becomes about what you can't do. You can't take that trip. You can't buy your kids a decent pair of shoes. You can't own a dream car. You can't subscribe to the movie channels. Yes, the good old, sacrifice your today for the promise of tomorrow. You settle. Slow lane victory, fame or a geriatric ward. Why invest in a plan that consumes 40 years of your life and fails most of the time? I wouldn't. The dreary reality is that slow lane failure doesn't happen overnight. Failure transpires over the years like a termite-infested woodshed, and when its denizens come to judgment, it's too late. Yes, slow lane victory is as tough as a truck stop sirloin. In a 2002 AARP, formerly the American Association of Retired Persons, survey, 69% of the respondents said they would need to work past retirement age. A year earlier, 45% said they would need to work into their 70s and 80s. We can deduce something disturbing from this data: the slow lane's failure rate is near 70%. Despite the risks, despite the mathematical limitations, despite the typical 5-day trade for a weekend, despite all of it, you might stand firm and try your luck. While victory isn't impossible, I need mention a few things. Slow lane winners are usually extremely talented, elderly, or overworked. How to win the slow lane? The secret exit. The slow lane can be defied if you find its secret exit, its get out of jail free card that neutralizes the limitations of uncontrollable limited leverage. That secret slow lane escape. Fame. Fame breaks the mathematical limitations of intrinsic value. Those who defy the slow lane are the most pervasive in our culture because of fame: the pro athletes, rappers, musicians, actors, and entertainers. If you want to bludgeon the slow lane's weakness, you need to get famous. Why? Fame and notoriety carries a high intrinsic value. People pay extraordinary rates for you and your services. Even if, like a reality show star, you have no skills. When a 20-year-old basketball player leaves college and scores a $30 million contract, you've just witnessed slow lane defiance. When an actress lands a $15 million lead role in a major motion picture, you've just witnessed slow lane defiance. When an obese, freckly-faced Irish guy ascends from waiter to top finalist on American Idol, the limitations of the slow lane roadmap are shattered because intrinsic value explodes. Suddenly, intrinsic value has leverage because of demand. Unfortunately, most people who seek wealth do so through slow lane defiance, not via the fast lane. Fortune-leading fames are the obvious attack. Why do stadiums breach to capacity for American Idol auditions? Fame explodes intrinsic value. You can defy the slow lane's limitations by becoming so indispensable that your value to society skyrockets. If millions seek you, you will be paid millions. Pro basketball player LeBron James is paid millions because his skills are in short supply. Famous actors and entertainers are paid millions because millions demand their brand in entertainment form. Extreme talent is paid extremely well. Overworked into corporate management. The other highly sought-after slow lane, secret exit, is good corporate management. No doubt you've heard the slow lane missive: climb the corporate ladder. When a corporate CEO cashes $20 million in stock options, you've witnessed another slow lane defiance. Surely you've heard about all those overpaid CEOs of large companies raking in the big dough. Have you ever looked at their age? Exclusive of the founders and owners, most of them are in their 50s and 60s. Obviously, the roads through corporate management don't happen overnight. From mailroom to CEO can take 40 years. And if it does, you certainly don't get there by taking it easy. Nope, you arrive early and leave late. Sorry, I don't have 40 years of patience, waiting for that golden parachute to land in my backyard. Successful slow laners get stuck in the middle. I have no desire to be famous or to be a corporate drone. Heck, I don't even own a suit or tie, so how would I climb the corporate ladder? If you're allergic to fame and corporate ascension as a road to riches, what's left? Society enforces the slow lane as your only option. Unfortunately, that strategy leads straight into the middle class or middle age. Every lottery has a winner. Bad odds have winners. Old laners, slow laners who succeed using a slow lane strategy, who survive the slow lane roadmap eventually become millionaires, but please, don't pop the cheap champagne quite yet. The distinction between a slow lane millionaire and a fast lane millionaire is like the difference between a Buick and a Ferrari. When you recognize the difference, you can critique advice properly and assign it to its correct fast lane or slow lane box. Millionaires are rich, or are they? I recently read an article about a young woman named Callie from the UK who, several years ago, won millions in a lottery, only to lose most of it shortly thereafter. Of course, lose implies that the entire bag of cash flew out of the car while cruising down the boulevard in her brand new convertible. She didn't lose it, she spent it. She was just 16 years old when she won the $3 million, and it took only 6 years for her to blow it. Drugs, partying, exotic cars, breast implants, and a jaw-dropping $730,000 in designer clothes. The problem? Callie thought she was rich and spent like she was rich. Surely she bought into her title, "I'm a millionaire." While $3 million is a decent chunk of change, she needed $30 million for her lifestyle. Which brings us to our famous word, millionaire. When you hear that word, what do you think? Like wealth, you probably have visions of an extravagant lifestyle, boats, helicopters, mansions, and expensive jewelry. For decades, the term millionaire has been ubiquitously used to describe someone rich. Except these visions of opulence describe a lifestyle of a millionaire elevated by the fast lane, not the slow lane. Slow lane millionaires who don't escape by fame or corporate bastardization live differently. They own homes in innocuous middle-class neighborhoods. They drive unassuming cars like Hondas or Toyotas, they vacation infrequently, they limit their dining expenses, they cut coupons, and they max out their 401 Burmese chats. They work 5 days a week at jobs they most likely hate and diligently save 10% of their paychecks. Others own small businesses, franchises, and retail stores. Several national best-selling books have enlightened us. Yes, these are the millionaires next door. Sadly, in today's terms, a millionaire, net worth of $1 million, is simply upper middle class. A millionaire is not rich. 5 million is the old 1 million. Depressing, I know. This hidden truth is why many lottery winners go broke after a few years. Winners envision the lavish lifestyle and live it not knowing that several $1 million won't support it. If you win $1 million, which after taxes is only $600,000, your lifestyle shouldn't change. If you try to live the millionaire lifestyle, as shown on television, a fool and his money are soon parted. Playing the lottery is a symptom of the sidewalk. So why would it shock anyone to discover that a newly crowned lottery winner goes broke just years later? Lottery winners assign rich to the word millionaire, so their fortune is fast spent on the icons of wealth, and soon thereafter, they're bankrupt. The word millionaire fooled them. Millionaire is middle class. To live a lifestyle normally reserved for millionaires, you will have to amass far more than $1 million. Having $1 million doesn't entitle you to a lifestyle of the rich and famous. You need at least $10 million for that. So when the media spoon-feed you the word millionaire, determine its perspective. Is it slow lane and middle class? Or fast lane and rich? 12 distinctions between slow lane and fast lane millionaires. 1. Slow lane millionaires make millions in 30 years or more. Fast lane millionaires make millions in 10 years or less. 2. Slow lane millionaires need to live in middle-class homes. Fast lane millionaires can live in luxury estates. 3. Slow lane millionaires have MBAs. Fast lane millionaires hire people with MBAs. 4. Slow lane millionaires let their assets drift by market forces. Fast lane millionaires control their assets and possess the power to manipulate their value. 5. Slow lane millionaires can't afford exotic cars. Fast lane millionaires can afford to drive whatever they want. 6. Slow lane millionaires work for their time. Fast lane millionaires have time working for them. 7. Slow lane millionaires are employees. Fast lane millionaires hire employees. 8. Slow lane millionaires have 401 Burmese chats. Fast lane millionaires offer 401 Burmese chats. 9. Slow lane millionaires use mutual funds and the stock market to get rich. Fast lane millionaires use them to stay rich. 10. Slow lane millionaires let other people control their income streams. Fast lane millionaires control their income streams. 11. Slow lane millionaires are cheap with money. Fast lane millionaires are cheap with time. 12. Slow lane millionaires use their house for net worth. Fast lane millionaires use their house for residency. The fast lane isn't about becoming the next middle-class millionaire with tiresome mandates about what you cannot do, it's about what you can do. Chapter Summary. Fast lane distinctions. The slow lane has 7 dangers, 5 of which cannot be controlled. The risk of lifestyle is the one risk slow laners will try to control. The slow lane is predisposed to mediocrity because its mathematical universe is mediocre. Slow laners manipulate the expense variable because it is the one thing they can control. Exponential income growth and expense management creates wealth, not just by curtailing expenses. You can break the slow lane equation by exploding your intrinsic value via fame or insider corporate management. Successful slow laners not famous or in corporate management end in the middle class and middle age. Slow lane millionaires are stuck in the middle class. $5 million is the new $1 million. A millionaire cannot live a millionaire lifestyle without financial discipline. Lottery winners fall into the millionaire trap and go broke because they attempt to live a millionaire lifestyle, not understanding that a few million doesn't go very far.